Welcome to the very first episode of Learn English with Natalie. I am so excited to be here. I have planned out the lesson structure of how I intend these episodes to go. However, I might adapt that as the episodes go on, depending on the feedback that I get from you and how well the lessons flow. Now, for today's first episode, we are going to be concentrating on understanding how to use synonyms and antonyms. Now, please remember that this lesson provides important information for the foundations of learning English, so you may need to revisit this episode many times throughout your learning journey. There is a PDF activity sheet that is ready to use alongside this episode. It is available in the show notes, so please go to the show notes to download that, as it will enhance your learning experience. Now, I'm going to be splitting this episode up into 5 different sections. Part 1 will be the introduction and teaching point. Part 2 will be vocabulary. Part 3 will be real life application. Part 4 will be a listening practice. And Part 5 is where I inform you on your next steps and what your independent learning will be for this week. So, let's get into it. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify synonyms and antonyms and understand why they are used. You'll be able to broaden your vocabulary knowledge and be able to use a variety of synonyms and antonyms in your English conversations. So first of all, what is a synonym? A synonym is one of 2 or more words or expressions of the same language that have the same or nearly the same meaning in some or all senses. So some synonyms that we're going to look at today will have a similar meaning, but it might be that there is a slight difference. An antonym basically means a word of the opposite meaning. So although we will touch on these today, we're going to be mainly focusing on synonyms, and antonyms go hand in hand with those. I want you to be careful when you are using a thesaurus or the internet to find synonyms. If you're writing an email or a letter or creating something for work, sometimes synonyms are not always appropriate, and that's what we're going to go into today. So why are synonyms used? Why do we need to know them? Basically, synonyms are used to avoid repetition in the language that you're using, so you are not using the same words over and over again, or they can also be used to create a specific meaning. So, for example, if I take the word happy, I can also use the words joyful or delighted instead. I've got the word sad. I might also use miserable or upset. If I have the word funny, instead I might use hilarious or hysterical. Now, antonyms are words that mean the opposite. They are also used to avoid repetition, and they are used to demonstrate an opposite. Noisy, the antonym of noisy is quiet. Near, the antonym for near is far. And complete, an antonym for complete is incomplete. Now we're going to go into part 2, the vocabulary section. If you've downloaded the PDF already, you will see a list of synonyms in front of you. You can use this as a listening practice and take some time after I say each word to practice saying that word yourself. So, the first list I'm going to look at is a list of synonyms for the word happy. My turn. Happy. Your turn. My turn. Joyful. Your turn. I'm going to continue the list in this pattern, but I'm just not going to keep saying my turn, your turn. I will just pause after I say each word. Cheerful. Content. Delighted. Pleased. Next set of synonyms are synonyms for the word big. Large. Huge. Enormous. Massive. Gigantic. Now we're going to look at synonyms for the word smart. Intelligent. Clever. Bright. Sharp. Wise. Let's take a look at some synonyms for the word quick. Fast. Rapid. Speedy. Swift. Hasty. Now we're looking at synonyms for the word sad. Unhappy, sorrowful, depressed, gloomy. And now synonyms for the word beautiful. Attractive, pretty, lovely, gorgeous, stunning. Number 7 on our list is angry, furious, irritated, annoyed, enraged, mad. And now, number 8 on the list, easy, simple, effortless, straightforward, uncomplicated, smooth. Next, we will look at synonyms for the word strong, powerful, sturdy, robust, vigorous, solid. And now finally we will look at synonyms for the word quiet, silent, still, tranquil, peaceful, calm. Now earlier in the episode I mentioned that synonyms aren't always appropriate. It really depends on what it is that you're talking about, and that will decipher which word you choose. So I'm going to use an example here. The child is blank because she isn't allowed ice cream for dinner. Now usually I would write, the child is sad because she isn't allowed ice cream for dinner. When I have a look at my synonyms for sad, I said unhappy, sorrowful, depressed, and gloomy. Now I could say, instead of sad, I could say the child is unhappy because she isn't allowed ice cream for dinner. Now I'm going to go further down the list and choose another synonym, which is depressed. The child is depressed because she isn't allowed ice cream for dinner. This is a really good example of how some synonyms are not appropriate. So the word depressed is a synonym for sad. However, depression is a word that we use to refer to a mental health condition. Now, I don't want to go into the ins and outs of what depression is because we're sort of looking specifically at language here. But depressed is more severe than sad, and it has its own meaning, and its meaning is not appropriate in the context of a child not being allowed ice cream for dinner. Which is why, to reiterate my earlier point, we do not just want to depend on Google to find our synonyms for us. We need to understand the correct meaning. Now, I'm quickly going to go through a list of antonyms. So I will give you a word and then I will give you a list of antonyms, so the opposite meaning. Now, the list that I give you will give you the opposite meaning, but they will all be synonyms for each other. Here's the first example. The first word I'm giving you is happy. An antonym for happy is sad. Another antonym, unhappy, miserable, depressed, gloomy. Number 2, big, small, your turn. Tiny, your turn. Little, your turn. Petite, your turn. Miniature, your turn. Perfect. Let's move on to the next word. The next word is smart. An antonym for smart is dumb, stupid, unintelligent, foolish, ignorant. The next word on our list is quick. An antonym for quick is slow, sluggish, delayed, lethargic, unhurried. Number 5, sad. An antonym for sad is happy, joyful, cheerful, delighted, pleased. Next word, beautiful. An antonym for beautiful is ugly, unattractive, plain, unsightly. Next word, angry. An antonym for angry, calm, peaceful, tranquil, composed, serene. Number 8, easy. An antonym for easy, difficult, hard, challenging, tough, complicated. Number 9, the word is strong. An antonym for strong is weak, feeble, fragile, delicate, frail. And number 10 is quiet. An antonym for quiet is loud, noisy, boisterous, rowdy, clamorous. Now I'm going to have a look at another sentence and focusing on using the correct synonyms in the correct way. The house is blank, but my current house is even more blank. So I might say here, the house is small, but my current house is even more, I could say small again, but then I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to use a synonym. But my current house is even more tiny. The house is small, but my current house is even more tiny. Or is even tinier, you could say instead. Now, on my list of synonyms for small, I had tiny, little, petite, miniature. If I tried to replace tiny with petite, it would say, the house is small, but my current house is even more petite. Now, petite isn't really a word that we would use in this scenario. Petite you would usually use to describe maybe a person or clothing. We have the petite section of clothing, but we wouldn't really use it to describe a house. Again, reiterating my earlier point of making sure your synonyms are always appropriate. Part 3. Real life application. Now, I am going to read some sentences and then I'm going to read a list of synonyms that could fit into this sentence. And we're going to go through each one and decide which synonym is appropriate. Number 1. Thank you for joining me today. I am blank, you could make it. If I was to say I am happy, you could make it, that's a perfectly fine sentence. If I said I am joyful, you could make it, not really appropriate. The word joyful you would use to express extreme happiness. I am joyful, you could make it, sounds a bit over the top, a little bit exaggerated. But you might say I am happy, you could make it, or I am delighted, you could make it. And if you were in a business setting, you might say I am pleased, you could make it. So there are different synonyms you could use in this example, but I wouldn't choose the word cheerful either. I am cheerful, you could make it. Again, it's that over-the-top exaggeration. Let's go to example 2. I always go to my father for advice, for he is very, my list here, smart, intelligent, clever, bright, sharp, wise. I always go to my father for advice, for he is very smart. Perfectly fine example. I always go to my father for advice, for he is very intelligent. Truth be told, I could use any of these synonyms in this example. However, because I'm talking about my father, who is older than me and has more experience, I'm going to choose the word wise. I always go to my father for advice, for he is very wise. So this word wise, it always lends itself to someone that's older, who's got more experience, has stories to tell, that can share their wisdom and advice. Sentence 3. We ate a picnic by the blank lake. Now I'm going to give you a list of synonyms and I want you to decide which synonym you would use. Quiet, still, silent, tranquil, peaceful, calm. We ate a picnic by the blank lake. Quiet, silent, still, tranquil, peaceful, calm. Which one would you choose? Yes, you could use any of these synonyms. Now, the ones that I find the most appropriate, quiet lake, the still lake, the tranquil lake, the peaceful lake, the calm lake. You could say the silent lake, although if we were being really picky, A lake isn't always exactly silent. Silent means there's no sound whatsoever, but you could still use that word in everyday language. Last example on this section. Her little brother blanked her on every car journey. Now, the word we are looking at is angry, or something linked to anger. So I've got some synonyms here for angry. Furious, irritated, annoyed, enraged, mad. Her little brother angry her on every car journey. Now, angry itself does not fit appropriately in this sentence, for angry is an adjective, but the type of word we're looking at filling here is a verb. So it's a doing word. What is he doing to her? Her little brother blanked her on every car journey. So you could say he angered her and change angry to angered. That's absolutely fine. We might say he irritated her, he annoyed her, he enraged her. But you couldn't say he furioused her, because that isn't a word. Or he madded her, because that isn't a word either. Mad is a word and furious is a word, but we're not converting them to verbs for this example. You could say he irritated her. That fits appropriately here because a little brother might irritate his sibling or annoy her. Whereas the word enraged, it makes me think of a supervillain. Enraged is like you're really angry, you're really mad. You could say it if you were looking for that exaggeration in like, oh, he made me so angry, he enraged me. But commonly in the English language, we might use irritated or annoyed. Now, part 4, listening practice. For your listening practice today, I am going to read out a description of a haunted house. After I've read that description, I'm going to read you a different description of the same house. However, I've used synonyms to replace the original words used. And I want you to decide which version sounds better. So, version 1. The old house was big and scary. The rooms were dark and the air was cold. The floors creaked underfoot and the windows were dirty. A strange smell filled the house and everything felt bad. Shadows moved in the corners, making it feel even more scary. Version 2. The ancient mansion was vast and eerie. The rooms were dim and the air was chilling. The floors groaned beneath each step and the windows were grimy. A peculiar odour permeated the house and everything felt ominous. Shadows shifted in the corners, making the atmosphere feel even more terrifying. Now I want you to think to yourself, which version did you prefer? And why do you think you preferred that version? Okay, so I'm going to highlight some of the adjectives that I used and then compare them to their synonyms in version 2. The old house was big and scary. I replaced that with the ancient mansion was vast and eerie. So that word scary is a perfectly fine English word. However, that word eerie is a bit more of an advanced word and it creates a more chilling atmosphere. Instead of saying the old house, I said the ancient mansion. So instead of picturing any old house, it could be a small house, a big house, it could be in the city, it could be in the suburbs. I'm saying the ancient mansion. I am creating a more specific picture in your mind. Version 1, the rooms were dark and the air was cold. Version 2, the rooms were dim and the air was chilling. Again, it's just making my writing sound a bit more mature and a bit more sophisticated. The floors creaked underfoot and the windows were dirty. Version 2, the floors groaned beneath each step and the windows were grimy. Now what I've done here is, instead of saying the floors creaked underfoot, I've said the floors groaned. The skill I've used here is something called personification. Now groaned is usually a sound that you would associate with a human. The human groaned in pain. However, I've used it to describe the floorboards here. This technique of personification is often used by authors as descriptive features of their language. However, I've used groaned as a synonym for creaked. You still know that those floorboards are making a sound. A peculiar odour permeated the house. Now, in my first version, I said, a strange smell filled the house. As you can hear, I am making that sentence more mature and more sophisticated. Shadows shifted in the corners. In my first version, it was shadows moved in the corners, making it feel even more scary, making the atmosphere feel even more terrifying. So as you can see in version 2, which is the one that I hope you picked, I used more sophisticated language and I was being more precise in portraying my meaning to my audience. The reason I've chosen this specific type of writing as a haunted house is because I think everyone's seen a horror film before or some version of a horror film. So therefore, it's just a good example of showing how language can be used in different ways, but this does apply to your everyday conversational English as well, being clear on the meaning that you are trying to put across. Now, we're nearly at the end. So for part 5, which is your independent learning and next steps, I'm just going to go through what your practice is for this week. This week, I would like you to create your own paragraph using the synonyms that are listed on the PDF sheet. Or you could use a thesaurus or Google to insert your own, but if you do that, please make sure the meaning is appropriate. And we have come to the end of today's lesson. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so proud of you for taking this first step, or it might not be your first step. You might be further down your English learning road. But thank you anyway for listening to the podcast, whether this is on YouTube or if you're listening audibly. I am so grateful that you are here. And if you do want to learn English at a faster pace, or if you've ever dreamed of being able to read and understand English novels, then you might want to consider joining my book club. Now, my aim is to create English language learning at an affordable price for everybody, which is why this podcast you've listened to today is absolutely free. However, I am also offering my book club, which is only $6 per month, and it comes with a 7-day free trial. Now, the book club comes with 4 extra episodes per month, where we study different English novels, diving into the themes, meaning, and vocabulary. We look at classic novels and modern day novels, and you also receive a PDF activity for that as well. Additionally, and again, this is only $6 per month, all of this is included, you will receive daily messages from me, from my online community, where I prompt you with different questions each day so that you can practice your English language every single day with other English language learners just like you. And if it doesn't work out, then you can cancel your subscription anytime at all. Get your first week for free. And you can have a look at all of the options available to you in the show notes below. The link is there where you can access the PDF activity for today and also more information about my exclusive online book club and also my gold membership, which includes all features of the book club plus a little bit more. So take a look at that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please remember to rate, review and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Until then, I'll see you next time.